Lancelot has become the gold standard for the knight in shining armor, an invincible champion of King Arthur's court, defined by prowess and loyalty. However, the Old French manuscripts of the 12th and 13th centuries tell a different story. These medieval authors frequently engineered their greatest hero's downfall. In these romances, chivalric adventures often function as allegories, where a knight's success or failure hinges on the specific religious and social values of the era. Tracking how this savior figure changes over a few short decades reveals a society in the process of redefining what it means to be a hero. In his 12th century work, Le Chevalier de la Charette, Chrétien de Troyes frames Lancelot as a redeemer who arrives to liberate captives from a dark realm. Lancelot willingly climbs into a criminal's cart to save the queen, enduring a form of public humiliation that medieval readers would have associated with the walk to the cross. He continues this sacrificial path at the sword bridge, crawling across the blade on bare hands and knees to reach those in need. This suffering is technically effective, but the motive is flawed. Lancelot is driven by his devotion to Queen Guinevere, an adulterous love that the Church categorized as a sin. This diagram shows the concept of chivalry terrienne, or earthly chivalry. It is a horizontal system where the knight's worth is tied to human approval and romantic passion. Because Lancelot's eyes are fixed on the queen rather than on heaven, he represents a version of knighthood that can save others, but cannot save himself. By the time of the 13th century Vulgate cycle, the literary landscape had shifted. The warrior hero was being held to a new, stricter standard. In these later stories, Lancelot is frequently confronted by hermits who criticize his lack of purity and his failure to understand spiritual matters. He is no longer the perfect champion. He is merely the best knight in the world, a title that limits his greatness strictly to the physical realm. Chrétien de Troyes' final romance, Le Comte de Graal, formalizes this shift by moving the focus away from Lancelot to a new, inexperienced protagonist, Percival. Percival lacks Lancelot's battlefield experience, but he possesses a willingness to look past the surface of his adventures and seek divine grace. The prize of the quest changes accordingly. The rescue of earthly maidens is replaced by a search for spiritual nourishment, represented by the Grail and the Eucharist. This transition suggests that for these 13th century writers, the most significant victory was no longer won with a sword, but through internal spiritual development. The evolution of the Savior Knight reaches its conclusion in the text known as La Quête de Graal. Lancelot is definitively barred from the final mysteries of the quest. His decades of worldly service cannot outweigh his failure to achieve spiritual purity. Success falls instead to his son, Galahad. Galahad represents the traits Lancelot lacked, a virgin nature and a single-minded focus on the divine. Returning to the diagram, we can define the final stage, Chevalerie Celestielle, or heavenly chivalry. This vertical axis shows Galahad's path. He redirects the purpose of knighthood upward, trading earthly renown for a connection to the divine. This trajectory from Lancelot to Galahad reflects a period where Arthurian literature was moving toward a more self-reflective philosophy. These romances demonstrate that, in the medieval mind, physical might and romantic devotion were viewed as incomplete without a foundation of moral purity.